our family of 3 plus 2 dogs just moved into a camper full time, and our goal is to empower families all over the country to do what they have to do to spend more time together as a family. Yeah. Easy, can you say hello to the camera?
Hello.
Say hi.
Hi.
Say hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good. My name is Jen Evans. What's your name? Can you say Easton? Easton, and how old are you? You're not 1 anymore. How old are you? 2. Good job. And who's this?
Dada.
That's Dada. So obviously, selling our home and moving into a camper is such a huge decision that you don't just make overnight. It requires a ton of logistics, a ton of just risk analysis in general, and obviously a mutual agreement with everybody in the household. So first, before we get in too deep into why we made the decision, what decision we specifically made, and things like that, I want to talk about our life before this decision. So from your perspective, how were we living before we decided to do this?
Before we decided to live full-time in a camper, you were a stay-at-home mom, working remotely, doing social media. I was in retail management, working 50 hours a week, and didn't get to see Easton a whole lot due to the work schedule, which made things hectic and sometimes drew tension, I guess, between us because it put a lot more of the taking care of Easton on you because I was at work a lot of the time.
Yeah, we pretty much felt like this huge imbalance where, you know, I was at home trying to balance my work with taking care of a growing boy. And even though he was the one that was on paper for 50 hours a week, it felt like I was too because, you know, the schedule that I have right now, I'm only supposed to work, you know, maybe 2 to 4 hours a day. But you mix that in with trying to tend to every single need that a toddler has, and those 2 to 4 hours could easily take all day until he gets home. And something that we talked a lot about before making this decision was why we wanted to do this. I mean, it felt like we conquered the American dream that everybody talks about, where you get your big house, you get a stable job, you get your white picket fence, your 2 kids and your dogs or whatever, and we achieved that. Like, we achieved everything that we were taught to make us happy, and it just didn't, because I got tired of feeling like a single mom even though I'm happily married. He got tired of working so much just to come home and find his son asleep for the night, and I really think Easton noticed the difference too. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So time was a big factor into this decision just in general, because when you are able to cut down the cost of living, you're also able to cut down the hours that you work to help make ends meet. So one of our biggest goals with this is to lower our cost of living, enhance the amount of time that we have together, and make it really good quality time, because, you know, not only were you working so many hours, but you came home stressed from it too. And, you know, the stress of that job, you know, almost gives you additional hours that you're working because you're just stressed thinking about work at home, right? It's funny because anyone that knows us, I feel like, knows that we have 2 different perspectives on a lot of things. And one of those things has to do a lot with this quote unquote stability. You know, you wanted this big house and everything more so than I did. And that was something that you wanted for a very long time and cared very deeply about. So when I brought to you this idea of us selling all of it and moving into a camper, what went through your head during all of that?
A lot of what ifs. And how do we afford it? Because I think living in a camper you can do very cheaply, and it can be a lot more affordable, but there is still a lot of costs that go in with it. And in order to get that family time back, it wasn't just selling the house and moving into a camper and keeping the job. It was selling the house, getting a camper to live in full time, leaving the job that has provided for our family for the last 3 years and it's done very well. And I do like my toys and I like my things, so part of that's hard too. But I think one of the biggest things that honestly makes me okay with the decision is the fact that nothing's permanent, and with the amount of stress and our son still being very young, it felt like a very good time for us to try it and do it and then see what life has in store for us later down the road.
Yeah, and the crazy part is we felt so much tension and imbalance, right? we knew something was off, and we didn't initially know what the best way was to fix it, right? Like, you were constantly working, it felt like I was constantly working, and then we just looked at each other one night and we're like, we can't do this anymore, right? So, like, what are our options? How can we actually escape from this never-ending cycle that we were in, right? And so it required a lot of risks, a lot of weighing the pros and cons and things like that. We've quickly learned that while this transition hopefully in the long run will save us money, it can be expensive to make the transition, right? With all of that being said, we just looked at each other one night and said, you know what, this is the decision that we want to make. This is, the path that we want to go. And I hope that we can just live like this until one night look at each other again and say, well, what's next for us? It's important to keep in mind that even though you have a career, even though you have a boss, even though you have incomes, even though you have bills to pay, that like you can deviate from this standard way of life to go about some abnormal way to happiness. And when we finally decided that this is what we were going to do, what made you finally be able to pull the trigger and be like, you know what, this is the right decision, let's do it?
I think a mixture of just stress at work and not handling the stress well and not being able to find that work-life balance where maybe someone else in that position can find that. But for me, I wasn't able to find that in the position that I was in. And then watching my son grow up and not being as much a part of it as I wanted to. And then realizing that my job being the only thing holding us back from like trying something new was what made me just be like, okay, let's do it, see what happens.
So obviously we've made this big transition and it has not gone quite as smoothly as we've hoped it would. What kind of different obstacles have we faced so far, and which ones in your opinion have been like the most stressful?
If anyone has not sold a house, that's a very stressful thing to do. Moving is very stressful, and then whenever you try to downsize, you go from living in a pretty decently sized house and you don't realize how much stuff you have and you try to downsize all that to fit it all in a camper. I think that was probably the most stressful part for me.
Yeah, so when we first started downsizing, I couldn't believe how many things were exiting our house. And it was crazy because we were inside of our house every single day with all of these items, and I couldn't tell you how many times we like opened up a door, opened up a box or a bag or something, and like found something I totally forgot that we owned. And we literally donated like how many bags of clothes? Like
at least 6 or 7
at least 6 or 7 bags of clothes. We donated.
It would have been a lot more if you'd get rid of some sweatshirts.
I have a lot of sweatshirts still. And it's such an eye-opener because if every single person out there was to just go through a deep clean of their house, even if you're not planning on downsizing, I can imagine, like, we could literally make empty houses into fully functional houses, which is with all this junk that people don't use. It's crazy to think about. But it's interesting because it felt good. Like, do you think it felt, like, good to get rid of all this stuff?
Oh, absolutely, because I'm very much a OCD, organized, everything needs to have a home kind of person. And we lived in that house for 2 years and we still had stuff that wasn't unpacked from whenever we moved into it. Mm. That's how it's always went, no matter what house I've lived in. Something wasn't unpacked somewhere. Yeah,
and it's so funny because, like, in here, like, everything has a home, and everything that's in this home has a purpose. Like literally the benches that we're sitting on right now have all of our outdoor gear, like our camping gear, your fishing stuff. Like, even though it's out of sight, out of mind, like, it's still stuff that we use and that we know that we're going to need. And I'm sure as soon as we get out to Arizona, we're going to be like, where's the stuff? We want to go outside. It's like, it's nice to look around and not have this abundance of coffee mugs when we really don't drink coffee that much, and like, having just this abundance of toys that he's grown out of, or these clothes that don't fit him anymore. Like, we got rid of all of that, and like, not only are we hoping that it's helping other families, but like, it feels good to just let go of it. And something that I've heard a lot of people in the camper community say is like, they never realized how little they would miss their things, which makes me wonder why we just haven't cleaned out our house sooner, because like, I think we just have this emotional attachment to things that we forgot even existed, and once you get rid of it, you realize that emotional connection was like not that strong. So
yeah, I think even if we weren't going to move into a camper, if we would have just went through and decluttered and downsized everything, I think we both would have been a lot less stressed just for that simple reason that everything just would have been more simple.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So the next big step in our journey is we are going on a multi-state road trip, which we are thankfully finally leaving for Friday. We were supposed to leave Monday and had some truck issues, so we're making sure the truck is safe for us to take it, and we are hoping to finally leave on Friday. So we eventually are going to land in Arizona, and we are going to be working at a campground. I'm going to be helping a lot with their social media and marketing, and you are going to be building things, which will be a little bit different than what you're used to, but like you've done it before and you seem to really enjoy it. But we're going to have him building tiny homes and RV shelters and things like that, and it's kind of cool because we've talked about like wanting to start a campground one day, and this campground is brand new, very up and coming. They have a lot of things that they want to plan, so like kind of getting in on this early level is something I feel really excited about. Do you?
Yeah, I think it'll be a good learning experience. It'll be really exciting to see the campground progress, and then just being able to learn from them and just see logistically how it's done. Because I've done, some small contract work and some different things like that, but nothing on this kind of scale. So just to see how the logistics work out, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and something that like I feel like both of us, like we can't have a desk job. I don't think either one of us. I used to be full-time law enforcement, you used to be full-time firefighting, I went to marketing, you went to retail management, and now we're landing here. And like, so I think it's a step that like we never would have like predicted, but like it makes sense, right? Like I feel like it's something that we're gonna be able to enhance those skills that we both feel like we're really strong in, and I'm excited. We found a business owner that is aligns with our goals beautifully, and I'm really excited to actually get out there and settle down. As much as I am excited for this road trip and seeing all those things, like the thought of finally settling down after moving around so much is really exciting to me too. So it'll be really good. Well, it'll be here before we know it. Now that we've talked about our next steps, which parts of that are you like just looking forward to the most?
Seeing different places, and then just being able to do things, as a family more so than what we used to, and then just the opportunities that can come.
Absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to just like seeing ourselves evolve. I mean, like I feel like we're both pushing ourselves to like this next level, and I'm really excited to see like our confidence grow, and like you said, to spend more time as a family, to see our son grow. Something I'm extremely excited about is being able to like just spend more time outside. Like back when you have a house, you could be in it all day if you wanted to, and like with this being smaller, we have the opportunity to be outside more, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to as well.
Yeah.
So something else is I've always been a traveler. I have been to all 50 states. I've been to 11 countries. I thoroughly enjoy traveling. You hadn't gotten out of the Midwest until we met almost 7 years ago now. And throughout this time, like, how has your perspective of traveling changed? Because I know for me, it's a very, like, deep and emotional journey. Like, it reminds me how small I am in the world compared to this, massive earth that we're on every day. So, like, it makes me feel connected with myself, connected with the world, connected with nature and things like that. But that's only, like, my personal feeling. Like, how have you evolved to traveling over time?
I've definitely grown to like traveling a lot more than I used to, because way back when, I've been to Indianapolis for conventions and stuff like that, Nashville and different things of that nature. But after we got together, we really did some extensive traveling, and we still are, and going to different countries, which has been cool, just to meet some different people and seeing how other people live, and just being able to see the rest of the world. I think seeing the mountains was probably the best thing, because now I've fell in love with the mountains. I would take the mountains over the beach any day. Something about hiking up the mountain with water running down next to you is just very enjoyable.
That's funny you say that, because I don't think you were ever open to moving to another state until I took you to Colorado and you saw the mountains.
Yeah, it's going to be a adapting process for sure. You are definitely a lot more ready to go to wherever. You'd probably move to a different country tomorrow if I would say yes.
I would.
But I'm still excited to do it and try it out and see where life takes us. So.
And we just had our big first trip, or I've been overseas. You had your first trip overseas. What did you think about that?
It was interesting, and it was fun seeing some of the differences in a different country and meeting the different people. I think whitewater rafting was cool and Switzerland was amazing. But I think the biggest thing, getting back and looking on it, really wasn't about being in Europe, but it was about being with 36 other people, and just connecting with other people. I think that was the biggest thing for me.
See, that's so funny to hear you say that afterwards, because if I remember correctly, before we left, you very vividly said that it could just be the two of us and the tour guide and you'd be fine.
Yeah, I did. But looking back at it, some of the people, they make it half of what it is. And I definitely didn't think that at the time, and I didn't even think that at the end of the trip. But I did whenever we got back.
Yeah, we met some pretty awesome people, both locals and just people that were in the group with us.
Absolutely. Very
cool. It's interesting for me to hear you say that. I'm proud of you for trying it because I know it was a big step. So we named this Raising Roamers. I thought about this name for a very long time before committing to it. And it's really important to me to not only, travel, but to grow our kids, into loving traveling. And I want him to know that the whole world is out there for him to see. I don't want him to ever feel limited or stuck like we did for such a long time. And so I feel like exposing him to the world at an early age is something that he'll hold tight with him for the rest of his life. And so, as someone that didn't travel until you were 21, 22 years old, really, how does traveling, work into, our parenting structure? And, why is it important for us specifically to, implement that with our son?
I think why we want him to travel and why we were traveling with him, because we want to travel with him and show him the world and not have him feel limited. And I feel like ever since he was born, he's been an outside baby, which is always what you've wanted, and I want him to be a little firefighting baby. So he just naturally went to both of those things. I mean, he loves the fire trucks, he loves the gear, he loves everything about them. And then same thing goes for the outdoors. I mean, he prefers to be outside without his shoes on versus with his shoes. He'd rather walk on the rocks barefoot, and he'd rather play in the dirt with his hands. So I think it's already part of who he is, and it would be really cool to see how he adapts to that as he grows up too.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and it's important to us to be able to let him flourish on these things that he's showing interest in, but also to not lose ourselves in the process, because we can only pour from a full cup. If we're not doing the things that make ourselves happy, how are we supposed to provide a happy household for our son? Everything that you're doing with firefighting, everything that I'm doing with traveling, it's so crucial for us to keep those things in our lives so we can continue to not push that on him, but to show him how happy it makes us, and to show him how happy it could make him if he chooses to pursue that also.
Absolutely.
So this journey has had a lot of stressors so far. We have bought more than one truck. We have learned that propane is going to be expensive to keep us warm all winter. And we have had issues with the camper that have been fixed. We're constantly learning. We are not professionals, not trying to tell you that we're professionals. We are figuring it out one day at a time. We literally just learned how to use our washing machine and our dryer today. So that's another thing we can check off the list. But out of all of these stressors and hurdles, what's been your favorite part about this journey so far?
Even though the trucks have had their issues, I like working on things, so it has been somewhat enjoyable to learn how to fix some things on the vehicles that I typically wouldn't know how to do because I never owned a diesel until now, so it's definitely learning there. And then I think my favorite part so far is just the harvest host that we've stayed at, because it gives me a little bit of insight on how neat it's going to be going forward, and then just seeing Easton in those different environments and then doing different things. That's probably been the most favorite thing for me.
Absolutely. So if you haven't heard of Harvest Host, it's a great platform if you have a camper and want to travel the country like we are. You pay maybe $150, $160 for the year, and there's a whole list of breweries, wineries, baseball stadiums, restaurants, bars, all of these places that have land that you're able to park at. And the membership comes with a free night at every single one of those places. So like if you're traveling the country, first night that you stay there, free, no matter which one it is. And then kind of just like Airbnb and all of these other companies, they give you options. So like some of them allow you to stay another night for $20. Some of them allow you to stay another night for free. And you just have to look at all of these listings. And we are about to go on this 15-day road trip. And on average, it costs us a total of $12 a night. And you put that together and, multiply that by 2 to get to, 30 days in a month. And, like, it's a quarter of our mortgage. And it's interesting to see it like that because, yes, we do have other costs. Like, we are talking about propane, talking about diesel, things like that. Like, we definitely have other costs. But when you really take that mortgage away and replace it with something that is already proving to be cheaper, it's a really big sigh of relief to start seeing us, like, make that progress forward towards like lowering our cost of living. But Harvest Host has been amazing. We've really enjoyed them so far. What kind of places have we stayed in so far?
So we stayed at the Grizzlies baseball stadium in Illinois, and then in Winsville we stayed at Rushacre Farm.
What kind of animals do they have at this
farm?
farm?
It's an alpaca farm. Majority they're an alpaca farm, but they have pigs, they have goats, chickens, turkeys for whatever reason, and they're no-kill farms, so that's also really cool. They have a shop where everything that's in there, they, for the most part, they made themselves, between soaps and just a lot of different neat stuff.
Yeah, the funny part is we needed help in both of these places, and both of these places delivered. like we were, I think your truck died at the Grizzly Stadium. And just some other people that were there with their camper, like, came over to us and asked us if we needed help. And it was so dead that we couldn't jump it with our other vehicle. So, like, someone was able to bring a jump box over and helped us out. Well, then we get to the next campsite, the alpaca farm, and you get there and immediately open the hood. And what does the staff do? They come out and check on us and see if we're okay. So I was really impressed with just, like, the sheer kindness of these strangers that... you would have never guessed that they were strangers if you looked at us talking to these people. And it was just so kind, and we sincerely appreciated it. And, like, we definitely want to pay that forward if we ever come across someone that needs help. But it was great having assistance that we didn't even know that we would need.
Absolutely, because, even at Rushacre Farm, we had another couple next to us who's been living full-time in a camper since, I think, 2020. And later that evening, after we were talking to them, we ended up helping them fix their generator.
I forgot about that.
And then they ended up needing it that night. So it definitely seems like there's a lot of kind people out there.
They left their phone numbers on a sticky note for us, and they're going to be
in Arizona.
Yep.
So
yeah, so it's just cool, the relationships you get to make along the way. And what you don't know, somebody else knows. So to be able to cross paths with all of these people and learn from each other and things like that, that's what life's all about.
Absolutely.
So on this podcast, I plan on having other guests on that are either also living full-time in a camper, or we really want to feature these really cool small businesses that we're coming in contact with, because even though we've only stayed a couple places so far, they've blown any expectations we had out of the water. And there's a place that we're staying at in a few weeks that's already given us zoo tickets because they didn't have anyone else to give them to. Like, people are just being really kind, and they're really unique, and travelers are some of the nicest people you'll come across because we've been to places where people have it rough. And so, like, it's a reminder for us to just be thankful and to be happy with, the lives that we have and make the changes that we need to make things even better. So I'm excited to have other camper families on the podcast. I'm excited to talk to these small businesses, and we are excited to see where this podcast and this camper takes us.
Absolutely.
We're the Evans family. Thank you for watching Raising Roamers, and we'll see you next time. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good job.
Night-night.
Night-night.